Hello, friends, and welcome back to another round of stories about entitled people. This story hits harder than it seems at first. You have a teenager doing her best, a manager who actually stands up for, which is rare, and a customer venting all her frustration onto the only people she can safely yell at. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. All right, let's get into it. Lady goes nuts over a homecoming dress in front of her daughter. So I used to work at a department store chain that has since gone bankrupt. The final months of the store being open were especially the hardest because rundown stores attract interesting people, to say the least. I worked in the apparel department, and most of the time my work was easy. However, there's one particular day that sticks out to me. I get called down to the register for a price check. A woman is buying a homecoming dress for her daughter, and she's telling the cashier that it's $15.99, not $35.99. I go up there and scan the tag with my scanner, only to see that it indeed does ring up $35.99. Okay, cool. Sometimes our signage could be incorrect, so I walk back over to apparel to check. The rack that particular dress was on had a sign that said any dress priced $40.99, now on clearance for $15.99. Not the exact prices, but you get the idea. The dress this woman was holding was on the same rack, but on the opposite side, in which everything was at normal price, as the sign on that side explains. I pull out my store phone and call the register and tell the cashier. She says, okay, and I move on to something else. After hanging up, I hear the screaming coming from the registers, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this woman and her daughter storming over to me. Pretending not to see them, I try to hide myself because this was the last thing that I wanted to deal with. Woman, ma'am? Ma'am? Can I speak with you? Me, yes, how can I help you? Woman, it says right there that these dresses here are $15.99. Me, all the dresses on this side here are on sale for that price, but that particular dress is on the other side here, and it's currently being sold at its normal price. Woman continues to spew her thoughts onto me as I pull out my walkie-talkie and call for my manager. My manager comes over and greets me and the woman. Manager, how can I help you? Woman, you people must hire some incompetent employees because these prices are wrong. Manager, do not speak to her in that way. This lady throws her dress back on the rack and stomps around in circles throughout the area to find a new one. She's mumbling under her breath, swearing incoherent nonsense. She picks up another dress marked $14.99 and holds it in front of my face. Woman, scan it. I scan it and it rings up $12.99, another incorrect price, although this one is lower than shown. Upon hearing this, she demands a corporate number. My manager's now asking her to leave the store and to stop bothering me, stating that pricing is completely out of our hands and there's no reason for her to be mean to me. Woman, am I being mean to you? My manager then tells me I can go ahead to go to another part of the store and hang out for a bit. From what I heard afterwards, the lady found a dress saying, I hate it, but purchased it anyway. Daughter looks very distraught the entire time. Oh, the joys of retail. While yes, our pricing system and organization was not the best, I had no control over that and was just a clueless 16-year-old when I worked there. Edit. For some more clarification, we didn't sell actual homecoming dresses, just tacky spring/summer dresses. They were really bad quality, at least in my opinion. It was also the day before homecoming. The daughter had Down syndrome as well. I feel bad for the daughter. I understand that some people have a limited budget and whatnot, but your mom not being willing to spend an extra $20 on a dress I'm assuming you liked, and then acting like a jerk about it's just insult to injury. And when the children act more like adults than the parents do, something went terribly wrong. And our second story. 15 years of petty hell. When I bought my house 15 years ago, all I wanted was a driveway. That was the dream. Not a big yard, not fancy finishes, just a simple patch of pavement where I could park without battling snowplows or hunting for street spots after work. After years of apartment living, the idea of pulling into my own driveway felt like absolute luxury. When I got the keys, though, there was already a car sitting in it. At first, I assumed it belonged to one of the contractors finishing up the place, but after a few days, when it still hadn't moved, I went next door to ask my new neighbor, an older man with a permanently sour expression, if he knew anything about it. Without hesitation, he said, "Yeah, that's mine." Apparently, the previous owners had let him park there while the house was being renovated. It was mutually beneficial, he explained. It saved him the trouble of finding street parking, and it made the house look lived in while it was empty. He said it like it was a noble act, as if parking his rusty sedan on my property was a community service. Okay, I said, but now I live here. I need the driveway back. He gave me this melodramatic sigh, shrugged, and said, I don't really have anywhere else to put it. I tried to be understanding. I apologized. I told him I'd give him a few days, but that I needed the space for our moving truck. Over the next 2 weeks, as we slowly hauled boxes in, I kept reminding him every time it was the same. I'll move it soon, or I just need to figure something out. Finally, the night before the movers were set to arrive, I knocked on his door again. Hey, tomorrow's the big move. We'll have the truck here first thing. I need the driveway clear by 8 a.m. He glared at me, slammed the door, and shouted through it, Sorry about your luck. I have permission. That was it. I took a deep breath and said, If it's still there at 8, I'm calling a tow truck. His reply was something along the lines of, F you, tough crap. The next morning, I walked outside at 7:59, and the car was gone. He was standing in his yard, arms crossed, glaring like a villain from a bad movie. As I pulled into my newly reclaimed driveway, he shouted, You'll rue the day you messed with me. It would have been funny if it wasn't such an omen, because that was the start of a 15-year nightmare. It began small. He installed industrial spotlights facing our back porch, blindly bright like airport runway lights, and flipped them on whenever we sat outside. If we ate dinner on the patio, the lights came on. If we had friends over, the lights came on. Then came the noise. Saturday mornings at 6 a.m., he'd blast awful music through outdoor speakers. Sunday mornings, it was a chainsaw. Not for cutting trees, but random planks of wood. I'd watch him through the window, standing in his driveway, slicing 2x4s for no reason other than to make noise. He took it further. He painted his house, not in full, but in patches. Random blotches of green and beige covered every wall like camouflage. When I asked what he was doing, he grinned and said, Enjoy looking at this for the rest of your life. Bet it kills your property value. 8 years later, it still looked like that, a deranged patchwork of colors visible from space. I called the police more than once, but he always stayed just inside the legal line. The spotlights on his property, the noise, within daytime hours. The paint, none of my business. I tried HOA mediation, neighborhood meetings, everything. He thrived on it. Every time someone told him to stop, he'd find a new, slightly different way to harass us. It wore me down. I stopped sitting on the porch, I stopped gardening in the front yard, my dream home had turned into a constant source of stress. And then one spring morning, it just ended. A for rent sign appeared in his yard. I later found out he'd gotten sick and moved closer to his kids. The house sat empty for a while before a young couple moved in. They mow their lawn, they wave when they see us, they don't shine floodlights at our windows or run chainsaws at dawn. For the first time in 15 years, my driveway is just a driveway. My weekends are quiet. I can sit on my porch without bracing for another stunt. There was no grand revenge, no dramatic confrontation. Just time, karma, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that sometimes life handles the villains for you. After everything he did, peace turned out to be the sweetest victory of all. What makes it so infuriating and brilliant storytelling is how it starts with something so small, a car in your driveway, and unravels into a 15-year psychological war. And our next story. My dad sold my house while I was on vacation. So a bit of backstory. My mother died when I was 16, and my father remarried to a woman who told him I had to go to a children's home or she would divorce him. My nan, his mother, intervened and became my guardian after she learned what was happening. Me and my father did not begin speaking again until I was 19. Skip forward to the end of 2022 when my nan passed on. It was a deeply emotional time, but before she passed, she was involved in setting up a will, etc., and I was heavily privy to this. Now, she'd amassed a bit of a small fortune, not millions, just about $300K, and lived mortgage-free. It was agreed I'd inherit the house we'd been living in. It's only a small bungalow, but in a nice area with some beautiful views, so expensive, and that I would also get half of the money. The rest would be split among my extended family and donated to various charities. Finally, the money I'd been paying in rent since I was about 16 had been put into a separate savings account to help pay for a big American road trip I'd always dreamed about. Once in a lifetime, whole year sort of thing. I was named executor of my nan's will, but obviously there was a lot of anger from the family. Around this time, my dad tried to get back into my life. He requested that he be made the executor. I refused, and then later asked if there was any way he could get some form of, his words, Brexit dividend to account for the impacts of Brexit and the global financial downturn on his industry. For context, he's a postman. Again, this was refused. Come last year, I finally sorted out all the affairs and had gotten set up for my big American trip. Once again, my dad became very interested and offered to help, asking if he could have a key to my house. This was the first time I learned and met his 3 new sons / my half-brothers. They're all various degrees of learning disabilities / SEND, so require extensive additional care. His new wife, the one who had me chucked out, has since left him, leaving him with the 3 kids to look after. It's crap, but what can you do? I refused him access to the house, but he was very adamant about teaching the boys some responsibility, but I rebuffed him and said I would no longer be in touch until I returned. He seemed to take it fine, and we left it at that. I depart for America, had the time of my life, and returned home feeling a better person for it. This is when the problems start. So I should mention that I had most of the furniture put into storage and asked my neighbors to keep an eye on the place to make sure squatters don't move in. Also, when I was in America, I got a phone call to say someone had attempted to access my bank account in branch. I changed my passwords and put it to the back of my mind. When I returned home, I saw there were lights on in the house and a car parked in the driveway. Obviously, I immediately panicked and my key no longer worked on the door. Thankfully, the people inside were saints and invited me in. They explained to me that they had bought the house in mid-2023 from a man with my name but much older looking. I very quickly realized who they were referring to and had to spend the night at a hotel. I contacted my dad the next day, who agreed to have a chat at his house. So I went to his new home, he had to sell the old one, where he explained that he had made an executive decision to take control of family assets. Long and short is, he broke into the house somehow, changed the locks, and impersonated me to sell it to the new family. So a bit more context. My dad's a postman, but he fancies himself an inventor, with a particular fascination with shoes, as his granddad, my great-granddad, was a cobbler. So he has ideas like shoes with an undersole heating device or a compartment to be like a spare pocket. He's a total fantasist, and to my understanding, he used the money from the house sale and selling belongings still in the house to fund him purchasing some land and some empty offices in town for his new company. These are all owned in his name. Update. It's been just over 8 months since I came back from the States and find strangers living in what used to be my nan's bungalow, and I can finally say it's over and justice actually came through this time. When I first wrote about it, everything felt impossible. My father had forged documents, sold my home out from under me, emptied the place, and somehow walked around like he just handled family business. Every lawyer I spoke to warned it could take years to untangle, but Nan, bless her, must have been watching over me because that man tripped over his own arrogance in record time. Turns out my dad wasn't as clever as he thought. During the investigation, police discovered that he'd faked a grant of probate using a template he'd downloaded online. The signature, the notary stamps, the entire thing blatantly fraudulent. He'd used it to impersonate me at the estate agent's office and at the bank handling the escrow. Worse still, he deposited the house sale proceeds into a newly opened account under my name, complete with a fake ID photo he'd cobbled together from one of my old passport pictures. That's where he got caught. The moment he tried to move a large transfer to his shoe company, the bank's fraud department flagged it. The fraud team froze the funds and traced every asset he'd bought with the money: an empty office building, a half-acre plot, and several prototype shoe devices that looked like science fair projects gone wrong. When they raided the property, they found stacks of paperwork, receipts with my forged signature, and, unbelievably, a pile of my nan's old letters he'd taken from the bungalow. He was arrested on multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and identity theft. At the hearing, the magistrate barely contained her disgust. His defense tried to spin it as a family misunderstanding, claiming he had power of attorney. He didn't. The prosecution laid out everything: the falsified probate, the fake ID, the fraudulent property sale, even the attempt to withdraw the frozen funds through one of his son's accounts. Last month, he pled guilty. He's serving 3 years with restitution payments to be made directly to me. The family who bought it, through no fault of their own, have been compensated by the insurer, and they've since moved nearby. I've already spoken with them, and they couldn't have been kinder about the whole ordeal. The day I got the keys back, I stood in the empty hallway of that little bungalow and just breathed. The furniture's gone, the walls are bare, but it's home again. Nan's rose bushes are still alive out front, and the view she loved is exactly the same. As for my father, his shoe empire's nothing but a shuttered warehouse full of broken prototypes and unpaid bills. He tried to build a kingdom out of lies, and all I got him was an orange jumpsuit and a permanent criminal record. I'm not celebrating exactly, it's more like relief, the kind of relief that comes when you realize you don't have to fight anymore. I've started fixing the place up, slowly. Maybe one day I'll sell it and finally take that American road trip again. This time without coming home to a nightmare. For now, I'm content knowing that justice, real, tangible justice, found its way back to our little family home, and I think Nan would have liked that ending just fine. His actions reveal a character defined by a toxic combination of grandiosity and profound selfishness. From the moment he tried to claim a Brexit dividend from his own mother's estate, it was clear he viewed family not as a bond of love, but as a resource to be exploited. He didn't just want the money, he wanted to destroy the tangible proof of your Nan's care for you, a care he never provided. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.